Welcome to another episode of the Resonance and Revenue podcast with Cam and Carla Snow. I am your host, Cam Snow.
And I am your co-host, Carla Snow, although Cam already said that.
I already did. I did.
But that is all right. We have a special treat for you today. If emotions are a sticky subject for you, or you are an expert and want another way to describe it, tune in. We have a treat for you.
Yes. All right. So let me describe the scenario here. This comes from coaching so many freaking entrepreneurs over the years, but you may be able to find yourself in this situation where you're planning your next business move, your next pivot. Maybe you're talking about what's my offer? How do I launch this? How do I get more sales for this new coaching program or service that I want to get out to the world? And you find yourself kind of having the same conversation with the same people over and over and over again, and the same conversation with yourself. How do I get more sales? How do I get more sales? How do I get more sales? And what we're going to talk about and dive into is how that conversation of trying to get traction on your offer, your message, your sales has to come after you've gotten grounded into what Carla and I call your emotional authority. So, babe, I want to kind of get the resonance side of the equation before we jump into some of the strategic stuff. What do you see when someone's having that conversation and they're just talking through what's my offer, what's my offer, what's my offer, in your experience, is really going on when that conversation is present?
When you're asking a question that is not specific enough to warrant a short answer, it tells me that you are creating loops of confusion that has in the past created a pattern of you eventually finding a solution. It's just super ineffective and time consuming. But in reality, it's this loop of powerlessness, of this urge to continue that cycle.
Man, there are so many good things right there. Because if you're an entrepreneur who has ever struggled with confusion, turn up the volume a little bit, because we're gonna dive into that. So this has been a big topic with our clients in the past few months. What is confusion, and where does it come from for entrepreneurs?
Confusion comes from when you forget that you live in a world where it requires energy to clear your vision first before you're meant to move. Because we live in a world that says if you don't move first, you're going to die, especially with everyone feeling so crazed about AI. Like, it's the constant fear, that's ultimately driving it. And it's more comfortable to say we're confused and need clarity than it is to admit that we're not willing to clear our own eyes.
Whoa. That was a writer downer. It's so much more comfortable to just say, I need clarity because I'm confused. And what we've found within ourselves, as with our clients, is that actually when that's showing up, it's usually something that your body's kind of throwing up in order to obscure what is actually a very clear decision. And we see this when we're talking about messaging for your business that will attract the attention of your ideal client so that they want to work with you and give you money and all that. Oftentimes, the confusion that comes up is like, well, I don't know who my avatar is, even though you've been in business for years and you've been working with the same person for years.
Right. And it comes up because you never addressed the first time it was traumatic to not actually know what the hell you're doing. And so you bury that first urge of, I don't know what the F I'm doing. And so now every time you do something that shows that you do know what you're doing, you're going to have that urge because your brain's going to be like, wait a minute, but you gave me evidence to say the opposite. And then you wonder why it keeps coming up. It's like, because you never changed the evidence.
So what you're saying is, like, great example that we landed on here of, like, you've been in business for years. You're maybe seeking to upgrade your avatar, go after maybe a more premium client who maybe has more money and At least that's what you think. Like, oh, I'm going to go for someone who's got a little bit more money. And what's the messaging that's going to attract this person? And yet it's like a manifestation of the same person. And this confusion comes up. And what you're saying is, let me just repeat what you said. What you are saying is that the reason that that confusion is coming up is because you haven't actually addressed that at some level, there was a trauma that happened when you faced that uncertainty the very first time and glossed over it and never actually dealt with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's
The
dissect that.
common phrase, like, let me give you all the mantras that like reinforce this idea. Pain before gain, right? Like push
Yeah,
through,
right.
like this, like
Just
fake
do
it
it.
till you make it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
But what you're saying is like there's those cultural mantras and they have their place, right? When there are times where
Yes.
you need to work through the resistance and stay focused to get through the thing. But there are other times where those mantras are not helpful because there are times where you need to stop and pay attention to what's going on in your system and attend to what's happening here because your body is sending you a signal, and what you're saying is that we often just override that signal and just push past it and just keep pushing past it until you know until your body's had enough and says no more. Is that when you reach burnout?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's one way of doing it. If you think of I actually hate the word burnout
Tell us why.
because when you label it something, it makes it more manageable. But if you think about the actual word, if you allow yourself to feel what burnout really is, it is you trying to be 100% you every single day to the point that your fuse has burned so hot that you're literally burning from the inside out.
Mm.
So don't say, oh, I'm, experiencing burnout right now. It's like, okay, one, if you're truly experiencing burnout, pause. Listen to what you just said. Listen to your body, your wisdom. Pause. At the end of the day, you are burning yourself out because you have been taught that hustle is to grind, is to make money, time for dollar. It is this industrial revolution. Well, honey boo, we're in the AI revolution now. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
this is not the time for you to stay in this I don't know anymore. Because guess what? You know something, to start there.
Mm. Yeah, when you said you have a problem with the phrase burnout, I think you're talking about like there's a point where you switch and you start burning a fuel source that you're not supposed to burn. Is that kind of like the idea you're getting at?
Well, you wear it like a badge of honor. Oh, look how resilient I am working through burnout. When in fact, burnout is not a state of being. Please don't get that confused.
Mm.
Because if you were in true burnout, you would die very quickly.
So you're
So,
not
and I
dead,
mean, so you're not dead, so
but
it's
did it
not
kill you?
burnout. So what is it actually? Do you see what
Mm.
I'm saying? Like, if you literally look at the word, like, folks, be intentional with your communication. That's why you are stuck,
Yeah.
because you won't even use the word, because you don't even want to speak it out loud, because at the end of the day, like, it matters
Let me break
so
down
deeply.
everything you just said and bring the context and the container to all of this. Because we started a conversation a little bit ago about the confusion piece and like where is that coming from? And as we've gone into this conversation about burnout, like it's the same thing. Because what we're essentially saying is that when there is no specificity around the language that you are using to describe the problems that you're dealing with, then it creates a situation where like your brain has nothing to grasp hold of. Right. Like I first encountered and learned this concept from my friend Spencer Burnett. He called it void language. And Carla calls it intentional communication. But the way that it just blew my mind is that when you use void language, which I'll give an example in a minute, you don't actually tell yourself anything that is actually true about reality. And to give you an example, I caught myself doing this the other day. I was like at the end of my day and I was kind of beating myself because I didn't feel as productive as I thought I should feel. And so I asked myself, well, what's true about today? And the first thought that just popped up into my mind was like, well, what's true is that I didn't send out an email. And I was like, well, what's also true is that my house didn't explode, right? Like that tells me there's no information there. There's no real information because it didn't actually encounter and work with reality, right? So using a to-do list that's not done to judge myself takes me nowhere. And that's like kind of like what this concept of void language is because if I tell Carla, hey, can you go get my keys? They're inside the house, but they're not in the bathroom, they're not in the bedroom, they're not in the kitchen. I haven't actually told her anything about where the keys are inside the house. And yet we do that to ourselves all the time. So when Carla is saying that we produce confusion as a way to obscure our decision making, what she's actually saying is that we refuse to get specific about the challenge and face the reality of what is actually in front of us. So that then we create confusion as a way to disassociate ourselves from the responsibilities that we have to steward our message.
Yeah. And if you're over here being like, but Carla, Cam, you don't understand. Like, I'm doing good. I've already recovered from burnout, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, all right, cool. Do you find yourself doom scrolling? Do you find yourself sleepy all the time? Do you find yourself like, look at your body, listen to your body? I'm not saying that what you believe is wrong. What I'm saying is feelings don't last long enough for you to trust them.
Okay, let's dig into that a little bit because my response was like, wait, what? Screech. Rewind. So dumb. Feelings don't last long enough for you to trust them. Tell us more.
That's why I chuckle at mindset work too, because it's like a thought worm doesn't last long enough for you to catch it either.
Wait, a thought
Well,
worm?
a thought worm.
Thought worm.
Yes.
All right, hit us with it, babe. What is a thought worm?
So there's therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy that has their basis in certain things that are great, but it facilitates this feeling of powerlessness. Because if you truly try to keep control of every single thought, you wouldn't be able to live because you have over 6,000 thought worms a day.
Mm.
And I think they're called like thought chain. It's some scientific word, and I was like, but it feels like a little worm that you just can't quite catch when someone's like, "What are you thinking about?" And it's like,
I have
right?
6,000 of these.
I had 6,000 of them today, and you want to know what I'm thinking now? Yeah. And that's not even if you're neurospicy. Anyway. So at the end of the day, whether it's a thought worm or a feeling, don't quote me on this. I can't remember if it's 10 or 12 seconds, but a feeling only lasts 10 to 12 seconds. Or it might even be 8 seconds. Something seconds. And that's the point. What you feel afterwards is what you have perceived. You have perceived the feeling, and then your brain interprets it and then sends that information back down into the
Perception, interpretation, communication.
Yeah, so what's crazy is we have 80% of our body is perception. So,
Okay.
AKA, if you want to look this up, 80% of our nervous system is called afferent, meaning communication going towards the brain, not away from it. Therefore, suggesting that
Whoa.
our whole head over body, mind over matter, all of this stuff, it's like it is not sacrifice or betray. Like if you watch the episode before this of like betraying your body, like thinking it's mindset over, and it's like, no, 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 no. The mind is placed on body. If body does not accept said head placement, you're not going to.
Yes. And this is why you may have found yourself in a seemingly unbreakable pattern of behavior in your business in the same spot every few months where you're just like, why am I here again? And it's because there are subconscious body based patterns that are making the decisions for you. And if it's body versus brain, your body's going to win every single time because there's more of it. There's more communication, and your body is doing its best to protect you and keep you from doing dumb things. It's just, man, this is the rabbit hole of of parts work and all the
Yeah.
things of, but essentially what Carla just said, to just reiterate, is that there are patterns and ways of being that live in your body. Your subconscious mind is your body. And so if you're still operating in your business from the perspective that mindset alone is what you need in order to advance in your business, then that may be why you're frustrated right now and not seeing the results that you're seeing in terms of clients, revenue, growth, and fulfillments along with that. Because the clients, revenue, and sales do not matter if you hate your life while you're doing it or once you get there, right?
Yeah. It's also freeing because it also means that no matter what, if you're consistently going forward in progress from the idea of the blueprint of who you truly are, rather than chasing somebody else's life, like you are going to be continuously placed through the path that is going to help you be more you naturally, which means it's not going to be the greatest. Sometimes it will be amazing and sometimes it won't, because I have found that some of the things that hurt us the most are some of the things that we're unwilling to let go of, because they are some of the gifts, quote unquote, gifts that we have been given in our childhood. And we need to do some mental cleaning house and some body cleaning house. So, speaking of which, I am not affiliated. I should be now that I realize this. But these are two books that I would, if you have not read, I would highly read. That goes way more into all of this. But The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. He is amazing. There's also trauma conferences if you don't want to read the book. There's just so much information. Or I mean, I guess you could
Yeah.
talk to
He
me
kind of
too.
brought this whole idea of like somatic psychology and trauma living in your body to the mainstream. Is it's getting attention in, terms of research studies because of that book. Yeah.
And then the other one, my other fave, is No Bad Parts
I knew it. By Richard Schwartz.
by Richard
Yeah.
Schwartz.
And I
My
will
man.
give a little testimonial for that one because I started reading this book, and he talks about, within the first couple of chapters, he talks about like this idea that is cultural as well as religious, that fundamentally we are bad people, which is certainly an idea that I was taught growing up Calvinist, of like the idea of total depravity. And he actually mentions that and quotes John Calvin in there. And just this idea that ultimately like we are bad. And he's like, no, that's actually not true. But there is a way and a framework for understanding that of you have parts of yourself that have burdens. And he said, well, if you can look at original sin and I can call it burdens, then we're talking about the same thing. I was like, whoa, that's fascinating. So highly recommend it if you came from a religious environment and you're deconditioning from that. In fact, we have a whole podcast season called the Recovering Christian Entrepreneur podcast that you can go and check out, that really talks about deconditioning from some of the religious things that you may have come up with that will impact your business. So, a little plug there for No Bad Parts and our own podcast. No big deal.
So, yeah. But in reality, if you're not even sure, reach out to me. We'll have our socials, but go specifically to Instagram, because on my Instagram is where you can find the free breathwork and somatic session.
Yes. Yeah. So to wrap up this beautiful conversation, we began this episode talking about the conversation that entrepreneurs will have about that new offer, that new avatar, that new launch, that new thing that is supposedly going to get you where you want to go and finally release you from the bonds of all the mistakes that you've made and get you to the promised land. And underneath that, there's this operating emotional undercurrent that has to be addressed. Otherwise, you are just going to keep spinning. And that, go ahead, babe.
And that whole that whole thing is the why behind it. Why new offer? Why the nudge, right? Like, where's that nudge coming from? Where is it actually operating from? Because if it's operating from a place of, I don't trust that my shit is good enough, or I had some sales go down really bad and now I'm not even sure if I can handle this, or what the heck, my life, everything is good, but somehow things are still falling apart. Like, there are all of these different hidden, not so hidden signs. So
Yeah. And, this, for me, that's kind of where my work and introduction to this work began, is that as a copywriter and marketing strategist, I do a lot of story extraction and built a methodology called the story economy that talks about the 3 core stories that you need for your business to attract your tribe of aligned clients. And what I discovered, in fact, I think I'm kind of realizing maybe in this moment, that my way of understanding like the underlying force behind the new offer, the new avatar, the new business pivot was, well, tell me the story, let me really understand. And that led me into the territory of really hearing about the depths of their personal experiences, from the wounding they experienced as children, to the business mistakes that they'd made. And a lot of times the work of like, well, let's figure out the story to put into the launch narrative so that we can create some emails and write a sales page, turned into an exploration of emotional territory that really gave a lot of clarity for like, why am I doing this? And then you can still use that stuff for your marketing, but there's that reconciliation so that you can come at it from a place of grounded authority and certainty, so that your message comes through as authentic as possible from the purity of your spirit, and not from a contrived mechanism of this marketing strategy that some guru has foisted upon your life.
or that you've gotten from ChatGPT.
Yeah, right. Which
Love
got it from the
AI,
gurus.
which got it from the gurus, right?
Yeah.
All
Damn.
right,
So
folks.
good.
Thank you so much for being on this journey once again with us. If it's been great, leave us a review. If it hasn't been great,
Send us a message.
send us a message.
Or
No,
leave a
just
review.
kidding.
Do what you're going to do.
Leave a review. Do whatever the heck you
We
want,
honor your
because
experience.
we honor your experience, and you are truly welcome here, no matter who you are. And if you have differing opinions, love it, because I think that when we are in a room that is really diverse, you know that the stuff that isn't quite right is gonna get challenged. So we
So
welcome
good.
all. Thank you so much to the Resonance and Revenue podcast. My name is Carla Snow.
And I am Cam Snow. And if you want to know more about how we work with entrepreneurs like you can grab our free guide on those 3 core stories that you need to build into a aligned brand that attracts your tribe of aligned clients. That's the story economy guide. That link will be in the show notes. And if you want to chat about possibly working together, either on your marketing or on maybe working through some of those somatic things that are coming up for you, there will be information on that in the show notes as well. And as always, we are here to help you unmask that message and live in the divine alignment of what God has called you to do. So thank you for spending this time with us, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.